At 3:02 a.m., my phone lit up like a slap across the face. I was sitting on the back porch, half asleep in that numb kind of way where the silence hurts more than noise ever could. The message just sat there on the screen, glowing like a middle finger to my entire existence. "You don't own me." 7 syllables. That's what she had to say after ghosting me for 3 nights. After not even pretending to care if I'd eaten, slept, or noticed the perfume she didn't wear for me. No hey, no sorry, no explanation. Just a sentence that sounded like it came straight out of a reality TV meltdown. I stared at it for maybe 10 seconds. Didn't rage. Didn't throw the phone. Just typed. "Then stop coming home like you're my wife." I hit send, placed the phone face down on the armrest, and lit a cigarette I didn't plan on finishing. No emotion. No trembling hands. Just a strange, heavy stillness. Like when you finally decide you're done bleeding for someone who treats your life like a hotel lobby. By 3:07, my phone had blown up with 23 missed calls and 6 follow-up texts. I didn't check a single one. She had spent the last year making sure I knew how little space I took up in her world. Now she was gasping for oxygen in mine. The irony didn't amuse me, but it did confirm something. The silence she once mistook for passivity was actually preparation. You might be listening to this thinking, "Damn, I felt that. That pit in your stomach when your partner stops looking at you and starts walking past you like a roommate who forgot rent." If you're nodding right now, you're not alone. More than 97% of people listening to stories like this haven't hit that little subscribe button yet. And I get it, we're all just trying to get through the day. But trust me, clicking that helps this crew keep building these stories, the ones too real for cable and too raw for TikTok. Anyway, back to Amanda. Her name flashed across the screen again and again. "Call me. We need to talk. This isn't funny." Funny? What exactly was supposed to be the punchline? That I was supposed to stay quiet while she played part-time wife and full-time mystery. I sat out there until the sky started bleeding orange. Somewhere between that first call and the 23rd, something in me hardened. Not in a hateful way, more like setting cement. Final. Heavy. Unshakable. See, what Amanda never grasped was that I used to be a builder. Not just with my hands, but with my patience. I laid foundation after foundation, emotional support, financial consistency, a damn near boring level of loyalty. I kept building even when she stopped showing up for blueprints. And at some point, I realized I was constructing a home she didn't even want to live in. It wasn't a dramatic shift. It was slow, cold, the kind of realization that grows in the dark, while you're paying bills she doesn't ask about and cleaning up dishes from a meal she never came home for. So when she fired off that text at 3:02 a.m., maybe after a couple glasses of wine and a flirtatious night with a coworker she swore was just harmless, I didn't explode. I just stopped. Stopped defending myself. Stopped asking. Stopped investing in a person who kept checking out emotionally but still expected room service. That porch became my cathedral of clarity. Inside the house, her side of the bed was perfectly made, as always. Her toothbrush untouched. Her favorite jacket still thrown over the guest room chair like a ghost of domesticity. She came and went on her schedule, expected warmth on return, and had the gall to act annoyed if I asked where she'd been. She used to say I was too predictable. I wore that like shame for a while. But predictability, my friend, is exactly what she underestimated. I was so predictably silent, so habitually stable, that she never thought to look beneath it. And that was her first mistake. The second? Believing she still had a home to come back to after that message. Because that night, I didn't just reply to a text. I flipped the entire board. Not with yelling, not with accusations. With finality. I stood up from that porch, crushed the cigarette under my heel, and walked inside. I didn't check the messages, didn't scroll through the previous weeks of cold shoulder dinners and half-hearted goodnights. I opened the drawer by my side of the bed. Inside, a small folder, labeled, in block print, documentation, personal. No, it wasn't just a man having a bad night. It was a man who had been waiting for the moment she would hand him the justification he never wanted, but finally had. She thought she was shaking the ground. But I built the floor she was standing on, and I was about to pull the nails out one by one. 2 years earlier, I would have told you Amanda was just going through something. That's how men like me rationalize it. Isn't it? We turn red flags into emotional growth, therapy speak, or hormones. We say, she needs space, when what we mean is, I'm terrified of what I'll see if I actually look too closely. The first time she said she wanted a solo trip, I nodded. We were in the kitchen. She was drinking almond milk and scrolling through some retreat page, yoga, silence, goats, whatever the hell. I was elbow deep in trying to fix the sink for the third time that month. I didn't ask where. I didn't ask why. I just said, sure, and handed her my half of the joint credit card so she could book it. That was the first chip. She came back with a tan and silence. Not the peaceful kind. The assessing kind. The kind that walks into a room and thinks, what here is worth keeping? After that, the nights out started. Supposed to be with coworkers. Supposed to be team building. Supposed to be occasional. Then they weren't. First I waited up. Then I didn't. I'd find receipts left in her jeans. Bars across town. Lounges we'd never go to together. One time, a napkin with a smiley face and a phone number written in red ink, folded into her coat pocket like a joke. I didn't confront her. I made a copy. That was the second chip. By year 5 of our marriage, we had built what looked like a solid life from the outside. House in a good neighborhood. 2 cars. One paid off, the other halfway there. Even a little cabin upstate that we inherited from my uncle. But inside, cracks so deep the echo was louder than any argument we could have had. So I started doing what she never expected. I observed, documented, planned. While she played independent adventurer, I removed her name from everything I legally could. Stopped updating our shared estate documents. Quietly restructured the cabin ownership into a trust. Just in my name. If you've never watched a lawyer flinch when you mention transferring assets during a marriage without a fight, it's a beautiful thing. Because it means you did your homework. I opened a separate account at a different bank. A quiet one. No app alerts, no mail to the house. I rerouted my paycheck, told her HR made a mistake with the deposit when she asked. She rolled her eyes and said, you really should call them. It's annoying. I smiled and said, I will. She never asked again. Meanwhile, she kept slipping, emotionally, physically, logistically. I'd noticed the change in her shampoo scent, the new jewelry, the gym bag that started following her everywhere, even though she hadn't stepped foot on a treadmill since COVID lockdown. She called me paranoid once. Said I was becoming obsessive with little things. That I was probably reading too much into it. I just nodded and offered her another glass of wine. What she didn't realize was that I had stopped listening to her words months ago. I was watching patterns. She couldn't lie consistently. The stories never lined up. One night she said she had dinner with Carla. The next morning, she forgot and said it was Rachel. 1 week, she said she hated Thai food. 2 weeks later, there was a charge from Siam Orchid at 10:42 p.m. For 2. When I brought it up, she scoffed. God, you're so controlling. I said, just trying to keep up. But I wasn't. I was keeping records. Her friends changed, too. The brunch group shifted from married women to a collection of Instagram influencers and barely employed real estate agents. Women who called themselves alphas and reposted boss babe quotes while dating married dentists. I started marking every date she left the house late. Logged every return time. Compared them to Google Maps location data she didn't know was syncing to our shared home router. I didn't need to hack her phone, I just needed to check the IPs. Pattern recognition is easy when you stop loving someone and start studying them. I even made a backup folder, encrypted, uploaded, stored offsite. One day she walked past my office and asked what I was working on. Old tax records. I lied. She didn't care enough to ask more. It wasn't that I was afraid to confront her. It was that I knew confrontation would only give her the chaos she could spin. Amanda thrives on drama. Drama lets her flip victimhood into a weapon. And I wasn't about to hand her a sword. So instead, I let her wander further into her fantasy of freedom while I quietly cut the ropes. She thought I was weak because I didn't argue. But real strength is not volume. It's leverage. And I was gathering every piece of it. At 3:14 a.m., while I sat on the edge of our bed staring at nothing, Amanda was in someone else's apartment, typing her version of history with manicured fingers and the grin of a woman who thought she was winning. He finally snapped. Might be time to go full D. That's what she sent. I saw the She blew through the front door at exactly 9:04 a.m., keys clattering to the floor, heels sharp against the tile like war drums, hair in a messy bun, eyes wild, still in the outfit from the night before, one I hadn't bought, hadn't seen, hadn't been meant to. Why the hell aren't you answering me? She snapped. I was sitting at the dining room table, coffee in hand, documents neatly stacked beside me. Calm, dressed, packed. I didn't flinch. I just glanced toward the front door, where a single suitcase waited like a loaded gun mine. "I'm heading to a meeting," I said flatly. "Lawyer. Want to come?" She froze. That word, the one she had danced around, weaponized in arguments, flirted with in her group chats, suddenly lost all its swagger. Her face twisted, as if trying to decide which mask to put on. Fury? Charm? Guilt? Denial? "Excuse me." I took another sip. "Lawyer," I repeated. "You know, the people who make things official." She stormed across the room and grabbed my phone off the table like she owned it, still operating under the illusion that she had any authority in this house. She didn't need my password. Notifications were right there. 3 unread messages. Lewis and Barnes Legal. Confirmed for 10:30 a.m. Bring the documents. CPA Karen Goldstein. Deed transfer complete. Will forward notarized copy. PI Jeff Caro. Delivery attempt successful. Footage timestamped and uploaded. Link below. Amanda's lips parted, but no sound came out. She scrolled. Her fingers started to tremble as she realized she wasn't looking at a man reacting emotionally. She was looking at a man who had already moved. "You're serious?" she asked, voice thinner now. "Dead. You're spying on me? You had me followed." I set my mug down and stood. Not aggressive, just done. "You had a second life. I had a second strategy." She flung the phone back onto the table. "This is manipulative. You could have just talked to me." "Oh, you mean like those 3 nights you didn't come home? Or that wine bar on Elm where you said you were with Rachel, who, by the way, was posting Instagram stories from Denver that night? You mean that kind of talking?" Her nostrils flared. "This is all in your head." I walked over to the entryway and tapped the suitcase. "Then you won't mind if I go see someone who deals in reality." That cracked her. Her eyes jumped from the suitcase to the documents, then to me, trying to find a version of me she recognized. But the man who used to apologize for asking basic questions, who'd swallow guilt just to keep the mood civil, he wasn't here. Not anymore. "Thomas, just wait. Okay? Can we talk first?" she asked, voice finally cracking. I nodded. "Sure. Say something I haven't already documented." She opened her mouth, closed it, stepped back. She looked around our house like she'd never seen it before. The vacuum lines in the carpet, the exact placement of her shoes by the stairs, the tulips in the vase, her favorite, still fresh. It was like it all mocked her. She'd assumed I'd be broken, devastated, that maybe I'd beg, maybe lash out, something she could twist into proof that I was the problem. Instead, I turned our home into a showroom of finality. The silence stretched. "Where are you staying?" she asked suddenly. I smiled but didn't answer, because the real question wasn't where I'd be. It was who I'd be from this point forward. I picked up the suitcase, walked past her like she was a guest overstaying her welcome, and opened the door. "If you're still here when I get back," I said, "please don't be." And I walked out without looking back, because when you've built the wall, you don't need to guard it. You just let it stand. 3 hours after I left, Amanda tried to run. Not in the dramatic suitcase on the curb, crying on the tarmac kind of way. No, she tried to escape the only way she knew how, by turning her spiral into a vacation. A flight to Vegas. Of course. Nothing screams, "I need clarity," like overpriced cocktails, underwhelming hotel robes, and pretending your marriage didn't just collapse under the weight of your own choices. Her version of coping has always been consumption. When things get real, she buys noise. But this time, her plastic refused to play along. The first card got declined. She assumed it was the airline. Tried again. Different card. Declined again. Her jaw must have tightened. I could picture it. She called the bank from her car, probably pacing in the parking lot of that boutique coffee shop she only started going to after we stopped having breakfast together. The barista knew her name. I didn't anymore. "Can you tell me why my card isn't working?" she said, tight-lipped. After verifying her identity, the voice on the other end, polite, detached, delivered the gut punch. "This account was legally restructured under sole authority last month. Your access was removed." I would have given anything to hear the silence on her end. That thin static of realization, the internal gears grinding to catch up. Amanda wasn't used to consequences arriving before she could control the narrative. She texted me within 2 minutes. "Amanda, are you freezing me out financially?" I saw it flash across my screen as I sat in the lawyer's office, reviewing the final draft of the separation plan. I didn't even blink. I typed back, "No. I just unlocked the door and let you walk out." No response. Not for 20 minutes. Then another message. Short. Measured. "Amanda, this is petty." I laughed. Out loud. Petty? Petty was me watching her flirt with her coworker at last year's office holiday party, and still driving her drunk ass home while she accused me of being paranoid. Petty was me biting my tongue every time she said she needed space, but never once offered transparency. Petty was me spending 6 months pretending we were still something while she spent every other weekend trying on her new identity like a clearance rack outfit. This wasn't petty. This was exit velocity. She tried to use her gym's app. Blocked. The payment method had been tied to our joint card, which no longer existed. She couldn't check in. Couldn't post a story in front of the same mirror where she used to film those motivational reels that conveniently cut off just above the second man's shoes. She reached out to a friend. One of the ones who'd hyped her up all year with "You deserve better" and "Live your truth." That friend didn't respond either. Because Amanda didn't know I talked to her husband 2 nights ago, and he had questions too. See, when people like Amanda start falling, they reach out to the scaffolding they built through performance and charm. What they forget is that scaffolding wasn't anchored. It was tied together with ego and illusions. And once you remove the foundation, the money, the status, the benefit of the doubt, it collapses fast. Vegas was never about escape. It was about validation. One last burst of control. But the card declined, and for once, so did the world around her. She couldn't book the trip. She couldn't spin the story. She couldn't even buy herself a lie to sleep inside. And for the first time in years, Amanda was alone with something she couldn't shop her way out of, herself. By Friday, Amanda realized the real punishment wasn't financial. It was social. The quiet, creeping exile from the world she once held court in like some suburban duchess. She first noticed it at her gym, the boutique one with eucalyptus towels and overpriced smoothies, where she spent more time posing for selfies than actually lifting weights. Usually, the front desk girl would wave and ask about her skincare routine. This time, barely a nod. And in the locker room, a few women she used to trade gossip with, fellow empowered wives, who loved to vent about their clueless husbands, suddenly paused their conversation when she walked in. Not subtly, not kindly, just enough to make it clear we heard. Amanda tried to hold her head up. Classic move. Chin high, lips tight, like she just walked out of a courtroom victorious. But then one of them looked her dead in the eyes, smiled without warmth, and said, "Some of us still believe in loyalty. Crazy, right?" She laughed. Too loud. Too late. Said something like, "Oh wow. Did Tom send out a press release?" She didn't know. One of those women, my cousin. Not the type to start drama, but the kind who doesn't tolerate women who sleep with someone else while acting like they're still owed respect from the man they betrayed. Amanda left after 5 minutes. Didn't even finish her protein shake. Then came the block. Matt, the walking haircut she'd risked everything for, cut her off completely. Phone, Instagram, even Venmo, because the moment she showed up outside his work to just talk, his instincts kicked in. You know, the type of guy who's charming until commitment enters the chat? That was Matt. Charming becomes cruel real fast when they feel cornered. He told HR she was making him uncomfortable. Amanda didn't see that coming. Her golden boy turned gray faster than spoiled milk. She tried damage control. A cryptic post on Instagram about learning who your real friends are. A story with a wine glass captioned, "Unbothered." Another featuring a quote card. "She's not toxic. You just can't handle accountability." Nobody commented, except for one emoji from an old acquaintance. The clown face. By Saturday, a neighbor, Sandy, the one who hosts all the seasonal parties, unfriended her on Facebook. Unfriended. Not even the courtesy of a quiet snooze. Just gone. The digital version of slamming a door and nailing it shut. Why? Because I'd sent Sandy a clip. Just 37 seconds. "Amanda, my driveway, 10:51 p.m. Kissing Matt like she wasn't married. Like the ring on her finger didn't matter. She didn't know the security cam facing the driveway was still linked to my cloud. She'd assumed, I guess, that I didn't care. I didn't send it to everyone. Just a few people. The ones who mattered. The ones who'd eventually hear her version of events and deserve the truth. I didn't even add commentary. Just, thought you should see this. No need to reply. The social veneer Amanda depended on began to crack. Not from some scandalous headline, but from quiet, deliberate whispers that spoke louder than any denial she could manufacture. She went to brunch alone on Sunday. Sat there poking at an overpriced omelet with no one across the table, pretending she had somewhere to be after. She tried texting her friend Kelly, the loudest of the cheerleaders during Amanda's independence era. No reply. What Amanda didn't know, Kelly's husband used to work with mine, and he saw the video too. Her phone became a mirror she couldn't look away from. Every app, every group chat, every silent message thread. She'd built her social life on curated confidence, on being the woman with stories, with jokes, with the perfect caption. But underneath all of it was just a hollow persona held together by borrowed charm and people who tolerated her because of me. Now those people were gone. She wasn't being cancelled. She was being forgotten. And that stung more than anything else. It arrived on a Monday afternoon, sealed in a thick white envelope with her full name spelled out in block letters. Amanda Elizabeth Carson. Served at her friend Jenny's place, where she'd been staying since things got weird at home. Her words. Jenny had opened the door to find a process server in a windbreaker and polite apathy. No emotion, no ceremony. Just a handoff. This is for Ms. Carson. Amanda wasn't even downstairs. She came running after Jenny yelled, I think you've been served. Amanda grabbed the envelope like it might bite her. But it wasn't the weight of it that made her hands shake. It was the silence of it. The way it didn't scream or accuse. It simply presented. She tore it open at the kitchen counter. First page. Notice of marital separation. Signed. Dated. Filed. Second page. Asset partition proposal. Cleanly divided. Methodical. Cold. Her name absent from everything meaningful. No stake in the second property. No access to the remaining joint account closed. Vehicle, hers, but the title was never co-signed, so good luck refinancing that lease now that her credit was tanking. Third section. A neatly compiled file from a private investigator. Black and white photos. Timestamps. One of her walking into Matt's apartment with an overnight bag. Another of them laughing in a booth at that little Peruvian place she told me she discovered on Yelp. There were statements, too. Summaries of her locations. Discrepancies between where she said she was and where she'd actually been. One page even quoted her text to Matt. He finally snapped. Might be time to go full D. At the bottom of the packet, one line stood out, bolded. Acknowledgement of service requested within 7 days. That was when Amanda dropped the envelope. She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She didn't run. She just crumpled. Right there, beside the barstool where she used to scroll through inspirational quotes and flirt with chaos. In a hoodie that wasn't hers, in a kitchen that wasn't hers, on a countertop that held every lie she ever told. Now undone by the truth she never expected to be served formally. Tears came in slow waves. Not the kind that demand attention. The kind that creep in when you realize the oxygen you always took for granted has been quietly turned off. Jenny stood frozen for a second before awkwardly mumbling, "I'll give you some space," and disappearing down the hallway. Amanda sat there, shaking, staring at the photos like maybe if she blinked enough, they'd disappear. Like maybe this was just another fight. Another dramatic chapter where she could beg, spin, or manipulate her way into a new resolution. But there was no fight, just structure. This wasn't a warning. This was documentation. Amanda wasn't used to being cornered by facts. She was used to emotions, to pulling heartstrings, even rotten ones, and watching people bend. But I hadn't given her emotion. I gave her evidence. And evidence doesn't argue. It just sits there, airtight, waiting for acknowledgement. She tried calling me. Once. Didn't go through. Tried again. Straight to voicemail. She typed out a text. "Can we please talk before we go nuclear?" Then deleted it. She wasn't sure what version of me would reply. The old one, tired, patient, still clinging to the memory of who we used to be. Or this one, the man who had given her all the rope she needed, and watched as she built her own noose with it. 7 days. That was the window. But she already knew. This wasn't a countdown. It was a mirror. And for once in her life she had to stare straight into it. No filters. No allies. No escape plan. Just the truth. Served cold. She showed up at my office like a scene stealer from a bad soap opera. Smeared mascara, fake humility, the look of a woman who just realized the cameras weren't rolling anymore. She marched in past reception like she still had rights to my time. Like she could weaponize the performance of pain and rewrite the story mid-season. The front desk buzzed me. "There's a woman here asking for you," says it's urgent. She won't leave. I already knew who. I walked out calmly, papers in hand, and there she was, Amanda, dressed for sympathy, crying like she hadn't orchestrated her own downfall with the precision of a narcissist with a checklist. She looked around the office like she expected someone to step in and defend her. But no one moved. "Tom," she said, voice cracking just right. "Can we talk? Please? Just 5 minutes." I didn't answer, just turned to the building security and said, "She's not cleared for this floor. Escort her out." "Are you serious?" she gasped. "You're really doing this? In front of everyone?" "Yes," I said flatly. "In front of everyone. You've done enough in the dark." She stepped toward me, hand trembling, voice louder now. "We're still married." I looked at her, eyes swollen, cheeks blotched with desperation, and replied, "Only on paper, and not for long." That stopped her, because Amanda never expected me to become untouchable. She always counted on my patience, my loyalty, on the idea that no matter what she did, there was still a soft place to land. She turned to the security guard. "Can you believe this? He's throwing me out of our marriage." The guard didn't blink, just waited, and so did I. As she was escorted out, she kept turning back, throwing lines like lifelines. "Tom, please, just talk to me. You're making a mistake." I wasn't thinking clearly. "We can fix this." I said nothing, because fixing implies something was ever solid to begin with. Later that day, she tried a different tactic. My sister called her twice, then a third time, left a voicemail, her voice soft and pathetic. "Please, I know you're close to him. Just talk to him for me. He's shutting me out. I made mistakes, I know, but this is too far." My sister called me right after. I didn't even have to ask. "She's scrambling," she said. "But she's not sorry. She's scared." Then added, colder than I'd ever heard her before, "You gave her the bridge. She lit the match. All you're doing is sweeping the ashes." Even she was done. Amanda thought she had cards left to play, emotional currency, family ties, old loyalties. But everything she tried to cash in came back empty. The man she cheated on? Unreachable. The family she smiled at during holidays? Silent. The friends who once toasted her glow up? Gone. She had nothing now but volume. And volume doesn't build anything. It just echoes. By that evening, she was back in Jenny's guest room, curled on a twin bed meant for temporary visitors, phone in hand, scrolling through old photos and texts, probably trying to stitch together a version of reality where she wasn't the villain. She wanted to believe this was all just a phase, that I'd calm down, that I'd remember the good times and cave like always. But that's the thing about men like me. When we go quiet long enough, you forget we're watching. When we finally move, we never come back. Her lawyer called mine with the kind of nervous tone you can hear through the transcript. She'd like to initiate a conversation. Of course she would. It had been 12 days since the service. 10 since she was escorted out of my office. 4 since the gym revoked her membership for disruptive behavior. 2 since Jenny politely asked her to find another place to stay. Now she wanted to talk. My reply, sent through counsel, was surgically clean. No alimony. No shared assets. She keeps her car and whatever personal items she can carry. That's it. Silence on their end for an hour. Then a return call. She's not comfortable with this arrangement. Neither was I when she turned our marriage into a punchline in a group chat. But here we were. Then came the real move. Desperation always arrives dressed as indignation. Amanda, through her lawyer, floated the threat. She's considering going public with her side of the story. She feels her image has been unfairly damaged. They always try to turn reputation into ransom when they realize love won't cash out. I didn't argue. I didn't respond with insults. I didn't even raise my voice. I just attached a file and sent it directly to her lawyer's inbox. The subject line read, FYI, Personnel Action Report, Matthew L. Inside, official HR complaint filed by a third party. Documentation of workplace relationship violations. Termination letter, citing cause. Screenshot of internal company memo. Effective immediately, Matt L. is no longer employed with us due to breach of policy and professional conduct concerns. I waited. 6 hours passed. No response. The next morning, a quiet reply from her attorney. She accepts the proposed settlement terms. No further conditions. That was the final collapse. No fireworks. No screaming match in court. No final monologue about forgiveness or lost love. Just a signature on paper that said, you gambled. You lost. Amanda had played her final card, not realizing it had already been folded days ago. Matt, the man she built her fantasy around, had been fired. His fallback plan became dead weight the second HR connected the dots, and I made sure those dots weren't just visible. They were highlighted. She had nowhere left to go. No leverage, no sympathy, no money, just a car, a closet of clothes that didn't fit her new narrative, and a reputation that cracked in silence. She never saw it coming, because the entire time she was rehearsing her grand betrayal in the mirror, I was writing the script for her exit. Quiet, final, undeniable, and I didn't even raise my voice. The lake was so still it looked artificial, like someone had paused the world just long enough for a man to breathe without being haunted by the next question, the next apology, the next lie. I stood ankle-deep in the water, rod in hand, the fog lifting slow off the surface like a curtain being pulled on the final act. The cabin wasn't mine, but it felt like it. My buddy had offered it months ago, back when I was still pretending things at home weren't broken beyond repair. I told him I'd never take him up on it. But here I was, alone, not lonely. My phone buzzed in my flannel pocket, just once. I let it sit there for a while. No urgency left in me, no anxiety, no emotional reflex. I reeled in slowly, pulled the hook from the empty line, and walked back to the porch. When I finally checked the screen, I saw her name, Amanda. Just one message. I made a mistake. Can we talk? I stared at it. Not with anger, not even with sadness. Just detachment. Like reading a headline about someone you used to know a long time ago. She still didn't get it. This wasn't about a single mistake. It was about the architecture of them. The foundation she built out of half-truths and performance. The way she mistook silence for softness. The way she confused patience with permission. And now, when all her backup plans had evaporated, when the people she thought would protect her had turned away, she wanted to circle back to the place she set fire to. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I opened my gallery app, scrolled to the album I'd labeled Evidence. Dozens of files, photos, screenshots, reports, all the things that had once mattered, all the breadcrumbs I'd followed to build a map out of hell. I selected the album, hovered for a moment, then hit delete. Not out of mercy, out of certainty, because there's a moment in every man's life when he stops living in reaction to someone else's chaos and starts reclaiming his own stillness. I walked back inside, poured a black coffee. No sugar, no cream, no distractions, and sat by the window as the morning sun broke through the trees. Then I typed one thing back. You don't belong to me, but this piece, that's mine now. And that was it. No punctuation, no signature. I watched the little delivered icon pop up beneath the message. No typing bubbles appeared. No follow-up. I set the phone face down on the table, picked up my rod again, and walked back toward the water. A few birds rustled in the distance. A fish broke the surface. And for the first time in years, I realized something simple and final. There was nothing left to fix, and no one left to explain myself to, not even her.